in the meeting room and is accessible to members of the public at any time during the course of this meeting. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a city council member or citizen so requests. First item is item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. D, approval of minutes of regular meeting on January 4th, 2021 as on file in the city clerk's office. E, approval of treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $614,288.87. Item F, approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $59,852.43. Item G, approval of Beatrice Plus funding request from the Beatrice Disc Golf Club in the amount of $4,000 for the new disc golf equipment as recommended by the Beatrice Plus Advisory Board. H, approval of Beatrice Plus funding request from the City of Beatrice in the amount of $2,730 for new park benches in the downtown area as recommended by the Beatrice Plus Advisory Board. Item I, approval of manager application for Tessa N. Hydo, license number CK123206 and number E-123561, in connection with the Mechanical Room LLC doing business as the Mechanical Room, 301 Court Street, Suite 5, Beatrice, Nebraska. Item J, resolution number 6659, granting permission to Derek Fralin, doing business as Fralin Concessions, to sell or offer for sale or peddle goods, wares, or merchandise upon public parking lot at Hannibal Park and the Scott Street ball fields. Item K, resolution number 6660, granting permission to Julie Fisher, doing business as Julie's Hot Dogs, to sell goods upon city property. Item L, resolution number 6661, granting Stone Hollow Brewing Company and their designees permission to offer for sale food items upon city property, including city right-of-way along 3rd Street between Court Street and Market Street. M, resolution number 6662, repealing resolutions which are no longer of use or contrary to current city practices. Item N, resolution number 6663, reappointing Richard Mayfield to the Beatrice Planning and Zoning Commission. O, resolution number 6664, reappointing Devin McGee to the Beatrice Planning and Zoning Commission. And P, resolution number 6665, reappointing John Reha to the Beatrice Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there any item that any member wants removed from the consent agenda? Rich?
L.
Item L. Anyone else? Anyone from the public? All right.
I move that items listed under the consent agenda, with the exception of item L, be approved, accepted, and are ratified as presented.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that the items listed under the consent agenda, with the exception of item L, be approved, accepted, and/or ratified as presented. Your vote, please. And that is approved 7-1 with
That's 8-0.
a bigger
There you go.
8-0. Thanks, City Administrator.
No problem.
Why he gets the big bucks.
That's exactly right. All right, Mr. Claybaugh.
I move that item L, resolution number 6661, granting Stone Hollow Brewing Company and their designees permission to offer for sale food items under city property, including city right-of-way along 3rd Street between Court Street and Market Street, be approved, accepted, and are ratified as presented.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Kerr, that we further discuss resolution number 6661. Mr. Kerr?
Well, I was reading through this, and is this going to be an every weekend deal? There is no, all it says in here is said permission should be effective immediately and terminate December 31st, 2021. There's no mention of how many times that they can do it or whatever by because they pretty well shut down one whole side of that street when they bring in those vendors. Is it like I said, is it going to be an every weekend ordeal, or What's,
I can't answer that question.
Again, just when talking to him, it was an occasional basis. It didn't sound like it was going to be an every weekend thing. Here and there, nothing too big. If they want to go out onto Court Street in that area, obviously we have to work with the state on that one. But down 3rd Street, they want to stay more on the sidewalk in that area in there. But as far as number of times, no, we were not given an exact number of times they wished to do this. But we had no complaints last year when they did it.
Any other further questions, comments from the public? And your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Resolution number 6661 has been passed and adopted. We have no public hearings. Next, we have on the agenda a resolution number 6666, executing the purchase order and any and all documents necessary to purchase 96-gallon waste carts from Sierra Container Group.
I move that resolution number 6666 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Billsbach, that resolution number 6666 be passed and adopted. Tobias?
So we went out for bid on waste containers. Oh, let me back up from there. So 2 weeks ago, you guys approved the purchase of 2 side-loading vehicles for the trash hauling that we're getting into. With those required the use of waste containers of a certain dimension that could be picked up by the truck that you approved last time. And so that's what we went out for bids for here. We did put together some specs. We sent those out. We received back 5 bids. Those bids range from roughly $287,000 to $311,000. In those, we asked for carts themselves, we asked for assembly and delivery, and we asked for shipping. So variable costs went into there. When we sat down and looked at them, the cheapest per cart was Sierra. But when you put together the carts, the assembly, and the shipping, the cheapest was MWC-CAN, K-A-N. They were the cheapest when you put all 3 together. None of the 5 met all the specs you put out there. Some of the specs we had borrowed from other communities, and so as we started to look back through all of those and see what made the most sense then to make a recommendation to you tonight, in talking also with John Van Tholen, again, our consultant we're using with this one, our recommendation is that we go with Sierra. And a couple of reasons why. When we looked at Sierra, they were the only ones, where their carts are made out of Virgin Prime HDPE, or basically the plastic that's used to make the carts. So they're the only ones that are using the Virgin Prime stuff. Again, you want to buy carts that are going to last for a long period of time. So theirs seem to have the best makeup there. Also, when it goes to weight, theirs was weighed the heaviest at 40 pounds. Some people may say you don't want a heavy cart because people have to move them, but when you talk about one to stand up in the wind, now granted, nothing was going to stand up to the wind last week, okay? But to handle most days in Nebraska, the 40-pound cart, the more weight, the better off we think you're going to be there. We did ask about wind stability and some of those things. That was one of the specs. Everybody did fine there. They also had the shortest lead time. Their lead time was 21 days to get their carts here. Others were as long as 45 days. So again, when you're talking about taking over by April 5th at the latest, you got to get delivery in there. You got to do all those things. The other thing we noticed when we talked about delivery, everybody meant something different. And so again, trying to make sure we got exactly what we want out of delivery. So the carts will be shipped here with the lids already attached. Sierra would take the carts, they would add on the wheels and the axles, and then they will go around and deliver a cart to each house. And while doing that, they will record the serial number so they know which carts delivered to which houses in case we need that information into the future. And so that was something that they made sure was in their delivery as well. And then finally, after we got the bids back, we went back and forth with these vendors a number of times, making sure I understood everything they had. And Sierra was honestly the best one to work with. Their customer service was excellent during the entire process as far as getting information back to you in a very timely manner, following up, make sure that you received everything you wanted. And so for those reasons, I'd certainly recommend Sierra moving forward. I will note that we will probably look at ordering about 300 additional carts. They're going to be shipped to you by the trailer load. You're already paying for the last trailer to come here. It makes sense to load the trailer up completely rather than putting a fraction of or partial load onto that trailer. And about the additional loads, about 332 carts, give or take. And so we'll probably end up recommending that you purchase those additional carts as well, have them delivered. Because we found that there are some commercial places that may use these carts as well. We found some other uses for them. But if nothing else, at least fill out the trailer load and not pay shipping on a smaller number of them sometime later.
The low bid was 287. The Sierra's bid is,
Sierra's bid all in was 290.
Pretty close.
290.
really close.
291 if you want to round up. So yeah, they were all fairly close to one another, and trying to make sure we compared apples to apples the best we could.
Any other questions, gentlemen? From the public? And your vote, please, gentlemen.
21 days from tomorrow?
21 days from the date that we approve the artwork, and so that'll be the next step, working through them approving artwork. And then also during that time, we have to get them customer list, and so they know where delivery goes. So we'll probably shoot for that mid-March to have them out to everybody. So everybody may have them in the next 2 weeks before
Yep.
we'll start picking them up, but
Yeah, that, I guess that, and I'm sorry, Stan, I didn't
It's all right.
ask my question quick enough. I just wondered when they'd be distributed, since they're distributing. Do we have any control over that?
we will. I mean, we'll have some, because obviously they're going to have to use some type of one of our locations to store everything.
I see.
And do some of that stuff, so we will have some control over it.
Okay. So we're gonna have some kind of a rollout notifying people that they're gonna show up, they're not just gonna come home and have this sitting in their driveway or their front yard?
Yes, so
Okay.
that'll be part of that process. If I start knowing what dates they're showing up, you'll start seeing messages go out
Okay,
through various media
Yep.
outlets and letting people know.
in your city bill, those kind of things?
Yep.
Okay.
So
All
just
right.
for the record, that is approved 8-0. Resolution number 6666 has been passed and adopted. Next is resolution number 6667, allowing expedited review of redevelopment plans that meet the requirements of section 18-2155-2 of the Community Development Law.
I move that resolution number 6667 be passed and adopted.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Morgan, that resolution number 6667 be passed and adopted.
So this is referred to as micro-TIF. The state the state unicameral approved this last session. It essentially allows certain TIF projects to skip the 5 meetings that are necessary today for TIF projects. So again, CRA, planning and zoning, CRA, city council, CRA. That's kind of the process you have to go through to get a TIF project. In order to qualify for a micro-TIF project, it has to be in a redevelopment project, or a redevelopment area. It has to be one project. It has to repair or rehab an existing facility. It has to, the building has to be at least 60 years old when it's done. If it's a single-family residence, it has to be valued at less than $250,000. If it is a commercial, it has to be valued at less than $1 million. We've had a few projects that probably would have qualified, but not a lot so far that kind of meet all of these requirements. There's a form that the Department of Economic Development's already prepared. That's the application that you have to use. It's one sheet of paper, so it's fairly simple to do. The state sets forth a $50 fee. That's all you're allowed to charge, and it has to be approved within about 30 days of submission. So kind of just moves the process along a little faster for certain smaller projects. In order for the city to be able to use micro-TIF, you have to pass a resolution saying that you will allow micro-TIF to be used in your community.
Questions?
So this body's control over that is what? If this is passed and someone comes in with a micro-TIF application to you, what is, do you handle that all in-house, or do we get that? What does this body control of that?
I would probably assume nothing, because if you remember, the redevelopment agreement is actually signed by the CRA
Right.
and not by city council.
Right.
So I would assume that you would skip all those steps, go straight to the end, have one meeting with CRA, they approve the redevelopment agreement, and you guys never see it.
That was my understanding as I read it. That was my understanding how this was going to be applied. I wanted the rest of this body to understand that that was the process.
And this TIF fee would be less than what we would normally
Yes.
charge.
Correct. Our normal TIF fee is $250. The state statute sets this one at $50.
And my concern isn't necessarily that it bypasses this body of giving it. These are smaller amounts. They're all going to be within the standard. My only concern, well, 2 concerns. One, that we don't really have a say in it, which I'd like to have a say in it. because we're the one that answer to it. But the other thing is the parameters within the TIF. So, how long the payback is, what the, that type of thing. So, because I've argued the length of the TIF payback unsuccessfully, but yet I've argued that. So that's my only concern. I'm not going to vote against this. I think it's a good idea. I just want the rest of the body to understand that.
Stan,
Mr. Kerr?
is there any way that when these micro TIFs come through that you can let us know at least?
I certainly can notify you, yes, and we would. In your packet, we have a list of all the TIF projects that are coming through, and certainly we'd have those conversations with you, but this body would not have a vote on them.
No, I'm not saying that, but just so we know and what the paybacks and stuff is, because, if there's a project going on, somebody's gonna go, what's that? And we're gonna go, we don't know. So,
Barnard?
Is it correct that the TIF that we use now, there's a limit on how much the community you can have TIFed, or how much a percentage of what can be TIFed? Is
Right,
that,
so the state statute sets forth a limit on the amount of area you can deem as blight and substandard. That's limited to 35% of your community for a first-class city. We're currently at roughly 34.7%.
so this goes against that? Anything that we would use here?
No, a micro TIF project has to occur in an area that's already been designated as blight and substandard.
Okay,
So the number of projects you have has no impact. It just how much of your area do you designate as blight and substandard, which are the only areas that qualify for tax increment financing.
thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public? And your vote, please. And that is approved, 8-0. Resolution number 6667 has been passed and adopted. Next is resolution number 6668, establishing various fees.
I move that resolution number 6668 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Billsbach, that resolution number 6668 be passed and adopted.
Again, our standard practice is we have one fee resolution that lists all the fees for the city of Beatrice in one document. You just added micro TIF, which has a $50 application fee. So the only change to the fee resolution before you tonight is the inclusion of that micro TIF application fee of $50.
Questions? All right, gentlemen, your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Resolution number 6668 has been passed and approved. Next is item D, resolution number 6669, executing the agreement for services between the city and Fakler Architects LLC to investigate and make recommendations regarding saving the building at 413 Court Street.
I move that resolution number 6669 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by McLean, that resolution number 6669 be passed and adopted.
So
Tobias?
413 Court Street's been condemned now for a while. We've been trying to work on a solution to that issue there. We've had some structural engineers look at the adjoining buildings, and if you were to demolish 413, what would need to be done to those adjoining buildings to shore those up. We then got around to looking at, is it possible to save 413 Court Street? And if so, how do you go about doing that? We kicked around a couple of different ways to maybe broach that idea. One was which to do much like a design build kind of process where you just leave it out to contractors to come back to you with their idea of how to rehab the building. Or the other idea is kind of the more standard way, which is you hire an architect, right? You come up with a set of plans and then you bid that set of plans out. We went back and forth internally as to what was the best way to kind of go forward with it, and ultimately we ended up going down this route, and that's retaining the services of Michael Fakler and a structural engineer to come up with a set of plans of what it would take to rehab that building, at least to make it a watertight shell, and to save the building itself, and then bid that process out to various contractors, and then come back before this body and say, okay, here are your options. Which way do you want to go moving forward? And so what you have before you is an agreement with Fakler Architects to retain him, and he's got in there a structural engineer. His total fee is $9,000, which includes the structural engineer as well.
Does the city own 413 Court?
We do not.
Mr. Kerr?
Who's paying for this?
We are,
Why isn't the guy who owns it paying for it?
because that's not the way the process works. Today, you pay for it, and when you're done with the project, you then go back to try to recoup your cost at that time.
Does this person have the money to reimburse us for this project?
I've not had a conversation with the property owner about his financial status at this point. He does have some,
He owns other properties in
he
town?
owns some other properties in town, yes.
Here we go again. Hopefully we can restructure it. Hopefully we can rebuild it, because I'd hate to see that go down.
Ted?
I understand the process in both of them, both of the scenarios. This is the one that I would support. At least you know what your costs are, because although we don't own it presently, I think that eventually we do own it. It would be, obviously, it would be cleaner if we owned it outright, but you know, obviously, but this lets us know exactly what our costs are, so we know where we're at the end of the process. So it would be nice to be able to have the gentleman that owns it do all of this, but he won't even let us inspect it. You know, it was difficult to just get in it. Time is of the essence, and this is probably the best dollars spent going forward to try to save the building, because every day that you wait makes it more difficult, so.
Any
Has
other
he
questions?
agreed to let us in for this?
No.
Not yet, okay.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
I asked if he had agreed to let us in, because I see that he's gotta open the door, allow access to the property, so.
We'll be able to get at it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem supporting it, I just wanna see how he was doing.
Any other questions from the public? Mike?
Michael Sothen, Main Street, Beatrice. I guess first of all, I just want to say thank you for just continuing to try to address these challenges with buildings like this. Obviously, you know, always the best thing is if we can catch it even before, you know, it gets to this point. We've been dealing with this for a while. But I guess one of the questions that I or that we would have is, you know, this building's been obviously in a state of dilapidation for quite some time, and it's always our opinion that, you know, efforts to try to save a building, you know, should be taken, and certainly, you know, as early as possible. But with the structure, just because it has been sitting with holes in the roof and other problems for quite some time, even if these plans are drawn up, which obviously a contractor is going to feel more protected with the stamp of an architect and an engineer, does the community development department feel like there would actually be contractors that would be willing to take on a bid at that point? Or is that also a concern? Because I mean, there's no doubt saving the building would be great, and it's better for the neighboring buildings, but I'm just wondering, you know, we've let this sit for, you know, it's been condemned for nearly 2 years now, and we're finally getting to this point. I'd hate to see us do this and then at the same time now not have a single contractor willing to take it on, and that we're back to demolition as the only option. So I didn't know if Community Development Department has a feeling for.
I'm not aware if they've had any conversations with contractors already about trying to rehab the building. But yes, after this project, after Mr. Fakler was done with his analysis, we would then look to go out to bid and hopefully see if we can't find some contractors who'd be interested in providing those services. Just kind of depends on, you know, what the market is at that point. It's hard to say. I can't tell you that I've got somebody in mind already that's looking to do this project, no.
Just because, you know, as you said earlier, Ted, I mean, time is of the essence, but unfortunately, we're several years behind the best case scenario for saving this building, so.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Always. I guess the only thing I'll leave with is, I don't know if there's yet still a plan for the revised adjoining building ordinance that you guys passed in November of, was that 2019? I don't know if there's yet a plan for how we're moving forward with that. But that's one of the tools that was obviously intended to try to get ahead of these issues. And so I do just want to state, I know that's been a frustration of the Main Street Board, is, you know, at some point, we need to try to be more proactive and get ahead of these problems, so that way we aren't having to make these terrible decisions at this point. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Any other questions? All right, gentlemen, your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Resolution number 6669 has been passed and adopted. Next is an ordinance authorizing the issuance by the City of Beatrice, Nebraska of its revenue bonds, Series 2021, in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2.8 million for the purpose of acquiring a waste disposal company.
I move that said ordinance be given number 21-3, the title thereof be approved, and the rules be suspended, and said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
It's been moved by Claybaugh, seconded by Fairbanks, that the ordinance be given number 21-3, the title thereof approved, the rules suspended, and the ordinance be read by number one time tonight, all 3 times tonight? 3 times tonight. A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 21-3 by number the first time, ordinance 21-3 by number the second time, and ordinance 21-3 by number the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 21-3 be passed and approved.
Second.
Moved by Claybaugh, seconded by McLean, that ordinance number 21-3 be passed and approved. Tobias?
So this ordinance authorizes the city to issue bonds, obviously for the garbage services that we're looking to get started. You see it's $2.8 million is because we want to make sure we net out $2.7 million to purchase the sanitary garbage and the equipment and all those things that we've talked about in the past. The first principal and interest payment will be March of 2022. The last payment will be March of 2031. Right now, the time frame we're looking at is we're looking to market these bonds at the end of February and close proceedings in March, so we can be able to disperse the funds then in April. As you recall, you've also done a reimbursement resolution, so as you're buying the carts and buying the trucks, we'll use those funds out of cash reserves, and then when the bond money comes back in, we'll reimburse the cash reserves that we've used to make those purchases. The all-inclusive cost, when you put in fees and everything else, is 1.2%.
That is really attractive.
Yes, it is.
Questions?
Where can I buy them?
Anyone from the public? All right, gentlemen, your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Ordinance number 21-3 has been passed and adopted. Next is a public forum. Purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the council at this time. Is there anyone here for the public forum? All right, seeing none, we'll go into discussions and reports. Next is the Engage Quarterly Report. Trevor Lee, take it away. Good evening.
All this talk about garbage, I've had at least one neighbor ask if I could put my security camera on Stan's driveway when he's pushing and pulling his cart
That might be
up
kind
and
of
down.
Going down's not gonna be so bad.
For the 2 new council members, my name is Trevor Lee, Executive Director for Engage, and we do our reports to the city and the county quarterly. So you should have all had a copy of that in your packet, and stop me anytime if you have questions. We usually divide these up into our objectives, so we always start with business retention and expansion. This time of year, we normally would be kicking off our more traditional business visit survey program, which we try to hit 40 a year. To maintain our certified community status, we have to have 30 with the state, so we shoot for 40. This year's a little different. Not gonna be going into everybody's place of business. Out of respect for them and their concerns and safety for everybody, so we kicked it off initially with a online survey. I've been really pleased. I think we're at about 10 response for the respondents on those, and the rest will follow up and do them in person. But that's more than I expected because it is a lot of personal, confidential data. So we're really, really happy to see that. So we'll follow up with that and do some more in person or even Zoom, virtual, one-on-one visits the best we can with those. We have some ongoing meetings with the school district discussing potential for career academies. Had some trouble scheduling those towards the end of the year. I know there's a lot of COVID fires that our schools are trying to put out, but those discussions are going on. We actually have a meeting this week, so we'll see if we can get some traction there. And I'm excited about those because it's not only an opportunity to look at how we expose our kids to just the skilled trades that we tend to focus on with our manufacturers, but also those health and human service trades that are so important in the area as well. On the second objective, new business attraction, we have 11 active projects right now. To be fair, I'd say 3 or 4 of those are carryover projects that kind of hit pause when we got into the pandemic and have remained paused. And if those don't come back, we won't necessarily be surprised. I also put in there for some new data to show you where those projects originate. So we've got a couple of those are from the state Department of Economic Development. Several are just originated locally through phone calls and connections we have. And then a handful are CBN, which is the Community Venture Network, which is at the bottom of that page. That's kind of our organization that we are with through the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development. So because we're members of that, so they send projects our way and we get to see if they're a fit. One of the bigger items this last year, I alluded to it in the cover letter, is when I got here was identifying additional sites. We're running out of ground in the industrial park. We still have a lot of acres, I'd say 45 to 50 buildable acres out there, but not all projects will fit there. So I'd say the better half, at least 6 months of last year, spurred by a specific project that we did not get. We've been working on options and due diligence for a 260 acre tract of land northwest of Beatrice. We had that secured through the end of this year. And we got to do, I'd say, a year's worth of due diligence on that site over a couple of months. So it was a lot of fun. It's a fun project. Unfortunately, we did not get it, but we're sitting much better than we were a year ago as far as sites. And now is the fun part. Going back and really looking at the due diligence, we've identified grants through Nebraska Public Power District, as well as programs through BNSF to do, ALTA surveys and identify the wetlands and really look at best case options for utilities. So that's kind of summarized on that page. Last time I was here, I mentioned that we had seen an uptick compared to the summer of just one-on-one business consultations, startups, calling our office, asking about programs and sites. That's continued. We've got, of those 11 projects, I'd say 3 or 4 of those make those up. So that's promising to continue seeing those. And the last thing I'll touch on under the fourth objective on the people attraction, we talked about it the last couple of times, we could not do our manufacturing month. Again, another opportunity to get kids into our schools, or kids from our schools into our manufacturers to see the opportunities that exist. So with that, we started looking at ideas for a video series, and that's kind of grown. And now we're highlighting, I think we're up to 7 or 8 businesses, and as well as entities, including Board of Public Works, to show kind of just a video series that we could share with kids, teachers, guidance counselors, and probably more importantly, parents, the opportunities that are right here in Gage County to go into those trades. Everything else is kind of business as usual, marketing, communications, annual report. We're compiling that now, so that should be coming out in February. Our annual meeting is still scheduled for February. We're not going to have the banquet this year, and we're still debating or deciding with the input of our members how that meeting looks, if we have an in-person meeting, online meeting. Right now it's kind of, we surveyed them, sort of a 25-25, 50 split. 50% have no preference, 25 want to do it in person, 25 want to do it online. So we'll come back next time and tell you how that went. Any questions for me?
Ted?
Trevor, so the second to last thing you talked about so it's on page 5 of your report.
Okay.
Okay, if you can scroll down to that. So, do you have internships? Do you have work study? I mean, what does that look like?
So Engage does have internships normally for us, but I think I have not been able to see what we've done in the past because this year was so different. So ideally, we would be able to connect our students to those employers. So
Okay.
if there's opportunities for job shadowing,
Right.
internships, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like.
That's what I was curious as to what that actually looked like.
Yeah, I think that's our vision. I don't know how that's been handled in the past. But if we could play any role in that, making that connection, just being a kind of a go-to contact for the companies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a role we would
The
play.
next time you come, if you could kind of expand on that a little bit, I want to ask you again if you could just expand on it in your report, then I can read it, so.
Sure,
All right, thanks.
you bet.
Morgan?
The only thing I was gonna say is, I know from the college perspective, I had the opportunity to see Trevor and engage work with a pretty large, company that he referred to that we didn't get that project. But I will say that it was done very professionally, and I felt really, really good about at least the role that we had, and I think also managing a real challenge during the pandemic. And so I just really appreciate the fact that I think you guys stepped up to the plate and did a really, really good job.
Thank you.
I would agree. Anybody else? You can, if you'd come up and state your name and address, please, for the record.
Ashley Mason, 1300 Lincoln Street, and it was for you. I love that you're getting involved with the public schools. What effort is Engage making to engage with the homeschool community that is continuing to grow here?
We've not had any interaction with the homeschool community.
Okay. I'd love to see that happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trevor, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Get that camera up, will you? All right, next on the agenda is the city administrator's monthly report. Joyce?
As always, happy to answer any questions, but give you a couple of highlights of some different projects that at least I have been asked about over the past. First, our electric vehicle has arrived. We brought it home today, so the charging station, as you see, is partially constructed. The electric department had to go through some training in order to be certified installers and hopefully get that project done here soon. Then you'll see probably a resolution come before you at the next meeting about some rules for EV parking and some of that stuff, but it has arrived and start seeing that around the community. The river access, the plans are currently at the department or the Army Corps of Engineers. They're reviewing them. We're waiting for their recommendation or comments back, and then we'll probably bring it back to you for some further discussion. The Tributary 44 study, this would be the drainage basin that runs all the way from Flowing Springs back up to Hannibal Park. That study, we were supposed to have a draft done to us by last Friday. I have not seen it yet. I don't know that James has seen it. He didn't say anything about it. So we are anticipating that draft study be done to us very soon. We'll make some comments, send it back to FHU, who's working on it. Hopefully get a final one here then done in the springtime. So then we can come back, start programming in some recommendations that they may have in that study that need to be made for that particular area. But we'll let you know as soon as we receive that one. Demo bids, we currently are out to bid on 3 demolitions for houses in town. Also, another demolition that's included in that demo bid is the Quonset that is at 2nd and Grant Street. Not the salt barn, not the salt shed, right? But the little Quonset that's over there will also be removed here soon as part of that bidding process. As part of the agreement to build the additional storage out by the service center was that building down there came out. That's located in the floodplain, and so it's got a dirt floor. They had a few materials stored in there, but now they've been able to get the new building built. They moved items out there, and then we'll look to come back and demolish this one here shortly.
How much money do we have in that destruct fund? Demolition?
Our
fund?
demolition fund this year
How much
is,
do we fund it for?
each year it varies. I think this year, we're at $60,000. We might be at 50, but I think it's 60,000 this year.
Needs to be
I
10.
got 6 houses over there that I want tore down. You're gonna need more than
10
60
times
grand.
I understand. That's just where it comes
I
down
think we ought
to.
to, I think we ought to revisit that somewhere down the line, maybe put a little more money into that. Because we've got a lot of houses that need, all over, that need taken down. They're just,
Just as long as we all understand that each house torn down is roughly $10,000 to $15,000.
that's why I said you're gonna need more money.
I mean, it's,
What I would suggest you do is get a list to city administration so we can kind of take into consideration ownership. And,
Working on it.
What's that?
I said I'm working on it, and then we're gonna have a meeting with Toby and Taylor and Rob.
Why don't you get that list in and we'll take a look. Any other questions, gentlemen?
I do have a question about the demolition. Are you bundling those again?
yes.
Okay. We have a couple new members, so in the past, we have kind of a new deal. Just
Sure.
explain it.
So after we go through the whole process and we've got a house ready to be torn down, we've done all the right paperwork, we've given everybody their notice, we've done all those things. In the past, we would go out and bid those out one at a time, and it seemed to work. I mean, we had contractors that bid on them, we had good prices, and then we saw an increase in prices. And so we went with another method where we took all the houses we kind of had lined up ready for demolition and we put them in the one bid package, and then all of a sudden prices dropped. And so we've had good luck doing it this way. So far it's working for us, and we'll continue to do that. Generally what we do then is we give the contractor, maybe a month worth of time to get all the houses down and get them all completed. We really don't tell them what order they have to go in. They just know that they've got a deadline to get all the houses done and completed and buttoned up before their timeline runs out.
It's quicker and cheaper.
Yeah, so far it has been. It's worked out well for us.
Okay.
And we try to bid it out during the winter time because we know a lot of times they've got equipment sitting and they're looking for some work to do. We know that if we get into the summertime, they're busy moving dirt because it's easy to move in the summer rather than winter. And so we try to keep that in mind too and work at times that maybe they're maybe a little more available.
Any other questions? All right, with that said, next city council meeting is going to be on February 21st, 2021 at 7 o'clock in these chambers. And there may or may not be a work session on January 25th, so stay tuned. Mr. Claybaugh,
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:42 PM.
Second.
moved by Claybaugh, second by Kerr, that the meeting be adjourned at 7:42 PM. Your vote, please. That is approved 8-0. Gentlemen, Michael, you got a minute?